All right, we got Houston going into New York Jets to take on the ghost of Aaron Rodgers and what looks like Zach Wilson out there, right? This New York Jets team hasn't looked great since putting all these pieces together. Maybe this is the week they get back on track, but I don't know. I don't think so, Tyson. I know that Houston just lost to Stephon Diggs. They're still short Nico Collins, but I believe in C.J. Stroud, Joe Mixon, and what this offense has. So I think this will be an interesting one. I don't know about fun, but we should have some offensive firepower tonight, I think.
I mean, the New York Jets haven't looked good since like Mark Sanchez in 2010. I mean, what are we doing here with the Jets? On paper, if you woke up from a couple year coma and you looked at the roster of this Jets team, you'd say this team is undefeated. This team's the favorite. You look at all these players. I mean, it's absolutely insane to me. And the problem here with DFS and betting and just anything in general is we're just going to keep losing money pretending that these guys are going to turn it on. You'd have to think that one of these weeks they're going to put up 40 fantasy points and the Jet fans are going to be happy. But more than likely, this is going to be another, this is going to be 17, 20 points put up by the Jets. They put up some decent yardage numbers. They don't score touchdowns. Greg the Leg or whoever, Greg the Leg's on IR at this point, which is probably a good thing. But whatever their field goal kicker is gets a bunch of points. The defense looks okay. I don't know what to do with this slate, man. Every single time, am I going to get off the bandwagon? And at this point, I think I am. We've done too many of these New York Jets showdown slates. At this point, are we committed or are we saying, no, I'm done with this. I'm out on this team. I don't know, man. Let's get into this. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, we got a Thursday night football Halloween special here. What are you getting into for Halloween, man? You walking around your neighborhood with the kids or what?
Yeah, actually, it's me and my wife's first wedding anniversary too. We did get
Oh,
married on
nice.
Halloween last year, so
That's awesome.
yeah, maybe we'll do something. We both work, so we'll probably do the kids tomorrow night and then do something this weekend. What about you guys?
I don't know, man. Just gonna come home from work, and we live in a neighborhood now where there's actual sidewalks and stuff. So maybe we'll just hand out some candy to the kids. Let's talk about this game, dude. So I don't know how in the world this is happening, but the Jets are favored. They lost 5 straight games. They're 1.5-point favorites at home. I kind of get it as far as, okay, the Texans. They haven't looked like the Texans of last year. C.J. Stroud isn't this MVP type guy. They have a lot of injuries on offense to talk about. So, okay, is that why? Stephon Diggs goes out. They're a little shorthanded on offense, but this is still a much better team. Like realistically, if you were to guess what the spread on this game would be, you'd have to think it'd be, Texans +2 or -2 or something like that. I'm kind of surprised to see this. And I think within SaberSim, I'm going to adjust the total. So you can adjust the total. I'll just flip-flop it, and that'll update the projections. So the game scripts will be a little bit different. It's a 42 total. Both of these defenses look good. I mean, for the most part. The Jets probably underachieving. They haven't really had this amazing output that we would expect. How much of that is, that they're down, the offense hasn't been looking good, a lot of 3 and outs. I don't know. 42 total, though, is interesting to me. So what are your thoughts on, the Jets being favored after, losing 5 straight games and looking like a terrible team coming off of a bad loss to the Patriots last week?
I don't hate it. I do think that there's some question marks that Houston has, especially after the Diggs injury. Still short Nico Collins. And I think maybe people potentially think the Jets aren't going to lose 6 in a row. But I'm with you. I think you really got to back these young, good quarterbacks, right? To your point, he may not have had, he may not be on an MVP caliber type year, but I think we know who CJ Stroud is and what this offense is. And, frankly, this is the same team that they had before last year, even with Diggs down. But they still have Joe Mixon, right? So, like, I do think that they're still in a pretty decent spot. So I don't hate putting some money on the money line for Houston. That's probably why you're seeing 77% of the bets coming in,
Yeah.
is because that's not a terrible bet outright.
Yeah, I mean, look, Nico Collins going down, that's a huge deal. To me, he was coming into the season, he was one of my favorite wide receivers, just fantasy wise. To me, it feels like when he's at full strength and this team is really going, he, in my opinion, call me crazy, but he's like a top 5 type of wide receiver. Just how physical he is. You can throw the ball up to him, and adding Diggs into that just took a lot of the pressure off of Nico Collins and really opened him up. And now Diggs took over. He was looking good. He's out for the year. I mean, that's rough. So now we're relying on Tank Dell. Now we're relying on Hutchinson, Mechie, Bobby Trees. And, before the show, you and I were talking. It seems like they kind of rotate these guys out. I mean, Hutchinson kind of directly filled in. It seems like, based on the numbers, filled in for Nico Collins. He hasn't really done much. And, Bobby Trees is at the end of his era here. I kind of forgot he was on this team. I'm not going to lie. So, you're looking at all that, and we're trying to figure out what to do with these wide receivers. I think that's the biggest key here, is which one of these guys is going to go off. And the hard part about this, DFS wise, is Stephon Diggs got injured on Sunday. The slate came out after that news. I didn't realize it was a season-ending injury until, maybe Monday or Tuesday. But, at minimum, Stephon Diggs was going to be out of this game. So DraftKings priced all these backup wide receivers up. So there's not this like 1K guy who's now going to get, 40 snaps that we could just jam in and hope he gets, 8 or 9 fantasy points. All these dudes for the Texans, it feels like, they're priced up enough to where you're going to need, you're going to need a touchdown. You're going to need four receptions or something out of them. So that makes it hard. You'd think there'd be a lot of value, but there's not a ton of value on this slate, to be honest. I mean, maybe even the Jets defense might be the best value. Offensive line wise, Texans have not looked good this year on the offensive line. Maybe that's the issue with Stroud. Maybe they're having offensive line issues. But when you look at PFF's ranking of the New York Jets offensive line at 8, it's kind of surprising to me. I just scrolled down. I was looking for the Jets. I just scrolled all the way down to the bottom, and I assumed they'd be in, the bottom half at least. But ranked 8th according to PFF. Aaron Rodgers has been sacked a lot. I don't know, man. So, like, thoughts on kind of this defense, both of these defenses going against this offensive line. It feels like the Texans can put a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is just holding the ball too much. He's indecisive. But it feels like Houston can put a lot of pressure here on the Jets. And on the other side, you got Hassan Reddick. You have a good defense on the other side here going up against apparently not so good offensive line. The Jets might have some success too. So it feels like, there could be a lot of different outcomes of this game, but more than likely this feels like a 24-17 type game, right? So any thoughts on these, defensive matchups here?
I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think that's kind of been one of the weak points of the Jets so far this year. So they've been inconsistent just from a general pass protection perspective. And then Houston, I'm interested to see how. I think Joe Mixon helps hide some of the issues that they have on the offensive line. Right, having a big bruising running back who can break tackles and pick up extra yards does help help you a little bit. So I think you can. I think you can kind of rely on him a little bit, man. Dude, Joe Mixon's been having a hell of a year, to be honest with you. That was a massive pickup by Houston.
Dude, every game that he's like played full, he's got like 26 plus fantasy points. He's been crushing. Like, to me,
yeah, and it's even worse because like Cam Akers wasn't doing shit when he was in there. It's like, bro, I don't know what you're doing. Is Joe Mixon really that much better than you?
I think he is, man. And to me, like, Joe Mixon is the clear and obvious. On these slates, we're usually talking about Breece Hall, even though the team isn't holding on to the ball. They're not having a ton of success in the red zone. They're not able to punch it in a lot. It feels like Breece Hall is always the guy that we're just like, okay, chalk him up for 15 fantasy points on a bad day. To me, that tonight, that feels like Joe Mixon. We got Cody Main tweet here talking about Breece Hall potentially being, the Slate's highest owned guy and, highest owned captain. What are we seeing in SaberSim? Let's look at that as far as ownership goes. Highest owned captain right now is Joe Mixon. And I think realistically, I think that's probably how it goes, considering all the injury news for Houston. Who's the most reliable guy? Tank Dell is good, but Joe Mixon to me feels like a better option. What do you think about, this Breece Hall potential for being the highest owned guy? Is this a fade candidate in a game script where, Houston is giving up 4.1 yards per carry this year? It's not terrible, not great, not terrible, pretty good. And same with the Jets giving up around the same. So what are we thinking about the run games here? Do we have any interest in maybe not absolutely jamming in Breece Hall if potentially he's going to be the highest owned captain?
Yeah, I don't know if you necessarily need to get too crazy with him at the captain spot. But I also don't want to be too contradictory here. I think the reason why you're not playing with him at captain as much is because just more of the inconsistencies that we've seen in the Jets offense, right? Like, I mean, Mixon's a fairly similar play on the other side, but we got Diggs gone and for sure Collins, right? So I think Mixon is just a generally better play 1-to-1, and if Hall's ownership is coming in higher, then I'll probably just go over on Mixon in those lineups. You can still have some Hall at captain. I don't think it really matters to that much, but I think I prefer Mixon just in general.
The amount of mouths that the Jets have to feed is up there. And you got Braylon Allen coming in as well in potential goal line situations or short yardage. And on the other side with Houston, they need mouths to feed. If this was NBA, the usage would be going to Mixon immediately. And on top of that, Dameon Pierce is out. So they're a little thin at running back, and maybe they just feed Mixon. Let's talk briefly here. So right now, this is the night before. Remember, I think this is going to change. And maybe the line moves. SaberSim is focusing a lot more on props into their system. So if the line moves and the props change a little bit, who knows what's going to happen. But, the night before, for single entry, this is the top rated lineup. You got Tank Dell at captain. You got a 3-3 here. Aaron Rodgers. And I don't know why, but SaberSim absolutely loves Mike Williams. I mean, I know Lazard is out, but Mike Williams hasn't proved anything. If that trend continues because of his price at 3,600 and his ceiling, I'm going to have to limit him for sure because I'm getting a ton of Mike Williams. So Tank Dell captain at single entry, I don't know if I'm going to do that. I feel like Joe Mixon single entry captain or Breece Hall. But going into GPPs, that's where we can talk a little bit more about Tank Dell. And you come over here. Maybe the ownership is what's causing this. Maybe Joe Mixon's ownership as we get closer to lock will go up in SaberSim. But this is the top-rated GPP lineup. You got a 5-1 Texans with Mixon, Stroud, Dell, kicker, Hutchinson, and then you got a one run back as Mike Williams. Like I said, the Mike Williams thing I don't quite get yet. Then you have a 4-2. And I think if you're trying to get different in tournaments, as ownership gets closer to lock, it feels like going Jets onslaughts might be an interesting way to get different. But what do you think about roster construction for this? Because, in the year 2024, it feels a lot harder to play Showdown at this point. The quarterbacks are priced down a little bit. The kickers are priced up. And on a slate like this where, there's 10 guys who could break the slate. What are you thinking about roster construction? What is your thoughts for GPPs on this one?
Yeah, I mean, the pricing's so tight on this one, you're going to be forced to probably have some bills you're not necessarily comfortable with, right? Now, the ones that we're looking at, a little light on kickers. I think that's probably because of the price, but um, and I guess because we don't know who the second one is yet, right? It doesn't look like they're giving any projections for other kickers.
Yeah.
So just something to keep in mind. So that's one thing. But yeah, man, I don't hate those GPP lineups, and I kind of have been tending to trust SaberSim a little bit more. That lineup might be tough, but if that lineup hits, it's probably going to be pretty rarely duplicated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mike Williams being your only Jets exposure isn't the end of the world, and for GBP, maybe this is what you need. So I don't know. And as far as the single entry one, I would like to get one of the running backs in, maybe not two quarterbacks. To be honest with you.
Yeah, no mix in here, which is a little interesting. This is going to change a lot, but it's kind of nice to see the night before where this is all fallen. Let's get into our injuries here.
Yeah, just pain. It was pain everywhere.
All right, Jameis Winston, man. By the way, that's a hell of a weekend for him. Let's start with the Texans. So I haven't gotten like an updated one. We're recording this around 9 p.m. Eastern. I haven't quite gotten an updated one. But make sure you check in on this, especially for the kicker situation for the Jets to see who's activated. But we know about these injuries for the Texans. We mentioned Diggs, he's out for the season. Nico Collins is out. He can come back, I think, November 11th. We're relying on Tank Dell. Anything else jump out to you here? Oh, yeah, and then Dameon Pierce. I think that's the biggest news here, is Dameon Pierce being out. Does that open up a little bit of value for Uwumbalawale? I butchered that. Does that open up value there? Do we have like a third running back that maybe we could mix in? Or is this mixing city all day?
Yeah, man. That's really the only thing that matters. I think it's mixed in city, but I do think you can sprinkle in Dare Ogunbowale. He'll
There you
get
go.
involved in the pass game. He is a pretty decent pass catching running back.
All right, let's move over to the Jets. Let's see. So, their cornerbacks are healthier. We're getting, a full complement of corners here. Michael Carter Jr. or Michael Carter II is back. I believe DJ Reed is back, right? Was he injured for? Anyways, it seems like, and correct me in the comments, but it seems like they got Sauce, they got DJ Reed, they got Michael Carter. That's a good sign. Not having Nico Collins, not having Stephon Diggs. Sorry, I blanked there for a second. Stephon Diggs. These cornerbacks are better than these wide receivers. So I don't know if we can, we might see a situation where maybe this Houston offense is a little slow. And, if they can shut down Mixon, this could be a low scoring game. So anything jump out to you here as far as the Jets and CJ Mosley's out. Let me scroll over here so you guys can see that. Lazard is out. We haven't really even talked about that, but that opens up more room for Mike Williams, which why in the early sims he's starting to get some juice. Anything jump out to you here about this Jets injury report?
CJ Mosley being out's interesting. He's one of the better middle linebackers in the league, but I don't think it moves the needle all that much for me. Biggest thing is the kicker situation, whoever ends up being active.
Yeah, let's keep an eye on that. All right, let's get into this breakdown here. Let me switch all this over. Break it down. All right, so we're in SaberSim here. Let's start with quarterbacks. Let's go to flex. So Aaron Rodgers is 9K. At this moment, he's getting a higher projection than CJ Stroud. I think that'll change potentially. CJ Stroud's 10K. Do we need in a game like this? Like, I feel like you could have some onslaught builds or some like shootout builds potentially, but it feels like generally speaking, this is probably, that 42 total. That feels about right. Do we need two quarterbacks in your lineups with all these damn skill position players on the Jets specifically?
Probably not, but man, that 9K price on Aaron Rodgers is kind of tough. That's a little bit more tempting than I was anticipating, right?
Yeah.
I think you can probably get a little bit crazy with him and be willing to play with him a little bit at captain. I think that might open up some interesting builds too. Maybe if you're doing weird shit in deeper GPPs, you can go like a 1-5 with Aaron Rodgers being your one jet, and then running it back with a bunch of Texans. Um, so I know I kind of just went off based on what you asked me, but that 9K price tag on Aaron Rodgers is interesting. And CJ Stroud at 10K. If they stay in this game, I think it's going to be because of him. I can easily see him going for 250 and 2 touchdowns. Right, may not sound like a crazy stat line, but that is enough to be in the optimal. So I like CJ Stroud. I don't know if you necessarily want to play with him too much at captain. I think you probably go some other route. He's not necessarily a guy that you're looking to get that rushing upside from. And if they don't hand that goddamn ball off to Joe Mixon, if they're inside the 5, then I might just turn the TV off.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I like CJ Stroud. I think Aaron Rodgers is a really interesting captain, though.
Yeah, 9K. Absolutely. I just can't quit this Jets team, man. I can't do it. It's just too sexy of a lineup, and I can't quit them. I'm going to try to limit it this week. You know, every Jets slate where you know they're underdogs during that 5-game losing streak. I'm like jamming in 4-2s. I'm jamming in 5-1s. I don't think I'm going to make any rules for this one for that. But if they fall into my lineups, I'll be excited to see what happens. Let's go to running backs here. Let's start with the Jets. So Breece Hall, 10.4K. Braylon Allen, 4,400. We talked about this in the intro a bit. Typically on a showdown slate, if Breece Hall is playing, I'm playing him. But I'm scared by the offense and their inability to really be consistent. And, you know, getting down there inside the 20, it feels like they're just screwed. Like, you know, I feel like, okay, just whoever the kicker is, just roll them out, let them kick the ball on first down because they're just not going to be able to score. Breece Hall is a guy that can't get vultured by Braylon Allen in these situations. But I think he has so much volume. I know there's a lot of mouths to feed on this team, but Breece Hall feels like a guy that has so much volume. I don't think that playing a captain is the wrong bet if he's the highest owned guy. But I'm more likely to probably choose someone else at captain if he's that high owned at captain. Probably just embrace him in the flex. Maybe get to 50, 60, 70. You know, I'm not sure yet. But maybe I'm 60% in the flex or something like that on Breece Hall. Maybe embrace him a little bit more in single entries and maybe completely fade at captain, in the GPPs if he's that high owned. Braylon Allen at 4,400. There's not a ton of value on this slate. There's probably not really any there's not any like $1,000 guy or $2,000 guy that I'm like, hell yeah, I want to get a ton of him. So Braylon Allen at 4,400. If he vultures and scores a touchdown, I don't even know if that's enough though. So what are we doing with these running backs here?
So I don't necessarily like Breece Hall at captain. I think I'd rather just if I'm going to go with the Jets. I think at this point I'm probably going Aaron Rodgers at 9K, $1,400 discount on this slate is pretty significant. Um, I think you're fine getting as much exposure as you want in the flex. Breece Hall is obviously a stud. Braylon Allen, I think he's an interesting captain option and some deeper GPPs. I think you probably can consider fading Breece Hall in those lineups. He is very much a decent vulture option, right? We've seen him end up with touchdowns that probably should have gone to Breece Hall. In fact, I'm making I make a bunch of money on Sunday if Breece Hall gets one of those touchdowns instead of Braylon Allen, right? I
Yeah,
think you
me
got to get
too.
another carry on the 1 yard line. So,
Yep.
he's going to get that work. He's going to get involved, and he's explosive, man. So 4,400, he's going to give you the flexibility to put in another guy. So both these guys should be in your player pool. I think Allen's probably the only one that I'll have at captain. And I know we had that tirade earlier about Mixon and Allen, or in Hall at the captain spot, but I I slipped my mind. Aaron Rodgers was 9K. Again, I'd just rather go there than Brees Hall.
And Aaron Rodgers, not to go off, but Aaron Rodgers had a good game last week. He didn't throw a pick. There was some crazy stat about the offense efficiency and how well they did, and them being the only team in the history of NFL to lose that game. I don't know why. Maybe it's they just can't get in the end zone. But maybe this is a situation where we see Aaron Rodgers, put up a 3-touchdown game, and 9K at the captain spot, as long as he kind of spreads that out, looks pretty good. Let's go to the other side here. Joe Mixon, 11K. Agumbawale, 2K. That might be the best value on the slate. I said there's probably not a 2K guy that you absolutely love, and I don't absolutely love Agumbawale. But, he gets you 3 receptions, 25 yards, and he gets you, maybe 30 yards on the ground. I don't think that does it for you. You probably need him to score. But 2K, we're going to need some value here. Is that an interesting, can we play these guys together? I think we can, right? Joe Mixon's 11K is expensive, but I think you could put a little bit of Agumbawale in. But this feels like more of a situation where it's just Mixon.
Well, so let's put it this way. Mixon has 20 targets on the year. Dare Ogunbowale has 18. And
Wow.
so, he just is he's the third down running back, third and long. He's going to get involved in the pass game, dump offs. We saw it, I think it was in Tampa. He did the same stuff, right? Like that's what he does. That's who he is, and that's what we're looking for at 2K, right? So I'm not gonna overstate it. I'll probably have around 10 to 15%. I might go as high as 20, 25. That's probably the limit. But for 2K, he absolutely is the best value play on the slate. I'm not going to talk about Joe Mixon. He's probably going to score 2 touchdowns. Play him captain, play him at the flex. Just, I don't know, fade him at your risk.
My nightmare is Brees Hall gets 2 touchdowns. The Jets put up 35 points. Joe Mixon puts up 7 fantasy points like we haven't seen all year. And this is just a shit show, and I'm in bed by 10 p.m. That's my nightmare. All right, let's go to wide receivers here. So this is interesting. Tank Dell, 9,200. All these guys, based off the news of Stephon Diggs getting injured, they were priced up a little bit. But still, we got some decent value here. But no one jumps out to me as really absolutely incredible. Xavier Hutchinson at 4K is probably the guy. But I'm not going to have 50% Xavier Hutchinson like I would with some other random wide receiver who gets a start. And I know that he's been filling in for Nico Collins, and he's been getting some run. But who's the guy that you're comfortable with here? Bobby Trees, 3K. I'm not comfortable playing him. He could get 0 points. But we got an old wily veteran who could step in. How many times have we seen Robert Woods in the past on the Rams or whatever team he was on get a little red zone, middle of the end zone touchdown? He's 3K. John Mechie, 2,800. Feels like Mechie you could throw at captain in a couple builds, and maybe hope he gets a downfield 60-yard target and takes it to the house. That's a possibility, but I don't feel like any of these guys in the flex they really jump out to me. And even Tank Dell at 9,200, he's coming in around 35% ownership in the flex. I think he's a good captain option, but I'm not absolutely jamming any of these guys. I think I'm going to have to spread myself out. What do you think?
Yeah, Tank Dell is obviously just a great play. I know he's going up against Sauce, DJ Reed, whatever you want, call it the Jets defense, but um, they're going to throw for 250 yards, right? He is going to get his share of that. So I like Tank Dell. I like him the captain. I like him the flex. I think to your point, the biggest thing we got to figure out is what's happening next. Hutch, Woods, or Mechie. I think Hutch is kind of the guy that they've been working right into the wide receiver rotation. Mechie is a guy they kept with the team. We talk about it almost every Texan show, right? They kept with the team despite health issues because they think that he can be explosive. So I think these are guys that you need to have some exposure to. If I'm ranking them, I think it's Hutchinson, Mechie, and then Woods, right? But what that means is Hutchinson, I'll probably be around 25 to 30% exposed to, right? Um, and then Bobby Trees and Mechie, I could comfortably be around 10 to 15. I'm not going to get too crazy. Now, that said, I will potentially have some Mechie captain exposure. I don't think I will do that with Woods. Woods is not going
Yeah.
to be a guy that's going to be going up the field for 40-yard touchdowns. And if he is, then I don't know. They've been he's the best kept secret since like he broke his leg in LA or whatever it was. So, hopefully the guy's good, but I think it's Tank Dell is the obvious number one, Hutch number two, Mechie, and then Woods.
Let's go to the other side here. So, I mean, come on. Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams. On paper, this is insane. Devontae's 9,800, Garrett Wilson's 9,600, Mike Williams is 3,600. With Alan Lazard being out, boost Mike Williams. It seems like they may be made up. Aaron Rodgers threw him under the bus. Mike Williams missed a couple of days of practice because of personal reasons. He was looking to get out of there. Now, is that okay? I don't know that anything's okay in New York. But, is this the game that we see a big Mike Williams breakout game? We've seen it in the past. Is he healthy enough at this point? Is he mentally there? $3,600, man, for Mike Williams. I mean, he's healthy. It's just, does he fit into this offense? And is Aaron Rodgers going to trust him? If you get on Aaron Rodgers' bad side, he's just not going to throw you the damn ball. But what do we do with Devontae and Garrett? Like Garrett Wilson, they're expensive. Can we, if we're fitting both of these guys into our lineups, we're probably going to want to pair them with Aaron Rodgers somewhere, whether in the flex or the captain. Can we play all these guys together? Like, do we do like an onslaught build with a random run back? I think you got to choose between one or the other. But I don't, it wouldn't surprise me if both of these guys had touchdowns. I'm just waiting for a breakout Devontae Adams in the corner of the end zone from the 5-yard line getting 2 touchdowns, and Garrett Wilson getting 15 targets, 9 receptions, and 110 yards. If that's the situation that happens in this game, I feel like, pairing Aaron Rodgers, getting Devontae Adams, getting Garrett Wilson in your lineup together could be an interesting build and a unique build. You're going to have to fade probably Mixon. You're probably going to have to fade, the CJ Stroud, but that's an interesting build. I just, I don't know how much I'm going to get, but because they're all so damn expensive, it feels like the field is going to be choosing between one or the other. What do you think?
Yeah, man. So this is an interesting one. I think D'Amico Ryans is a really good coach. He's a really good head coach, and he's a very defensive coach. I think he's part of that Bill Belichick coaching tree, right? It comes from Bill Belichick, Bill O'Brien. All of that is taken into account. All of that is to say, I think they're going to take away one of these guys. I don't really know who, but that makes it easy for me. I'm really not going to do much of having both Adams and Wilson in the same lineup. Really tough to do from just a financial perspective, but I think D'Amico Ryan's probably trying to shut one of these guys down. And my bet is it's going to be not letting Aaron Rodgers get comfortable with Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
So I think you can have a little bit of Garrett Wilson, the captain, Garrett Wilson at the flex. Have some exposure to Devontae Adams too. I'm not trying to take a stand necessarily here. I'm just saying that I think it's going to be one or the other. And yeah, man, Mike Williams, I think at his price, 3,600, I don't know if you need to be concerned about not having Aaron Rodgers in the lineup that has him and, say, Wilson or Adams because of the lack of general value on the slate. If he has, 3 receptions for 25 yards, that might be enough to be optimal over a kicker, potentially. And, of course, now that I said that, that's not going to happen. But that's really where I draw the line. I think you can sprinkle in some Xavier Gibson, just special teams, and depending on how pissed off Aaron Rodgers is, and if they get a Hail Mary opportunity, you know that's always in play. So I think that's fine. Outside of that, that's where I'll cut the line.
Yeah, I'm gonna have some Mike Williams captain, because he's probably, let's look, 2% owned. So I'll mix in a little Mike Williams. Maybe this is the week he, has one of his usual big plays. But I'm not, SaberSim absolutely loves him. I'm going to have to limit him if they continue to love him. But I'll have a healthy amount. Let's move on to tight end here for the Jets. So Conklin scored a touchdown last week. He's 5,600. I don't know how you can afford him. I just don't. He's 5,600. I mean, this is a guy that earlier in the year was 2K, 2,500, $3,000. 5,600. I'd rather just get a kicker over Conklin. And if Conklin beats me by getting 2 touchdowns or something, then whatever. Ruckert is 1K. Ferkser's 2K. The tight ends on this team, they don't seem to be utilizing these guys. There's so many mouths to feed. All these guys are going to be, 15, 10% owned. We need some value. A guy like Ruckert, though, at 1K is a lot more interesting than Tyler Conklin. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. That's exactly what I was going to say. 5,600 is too much for Conklin. Again, if you're comfortable getting there, I'm not going to prioritize him, but if you have 5,600 left, sure. But yeah, Ruckert at 1K, I think that's, again, another punt that I'd be willing to take a few risks on.
Let's go to Houston. So Dalton Schultz is 7K. With all these guys out, we haven't really seen him go off. Let's look at Dalton Schultz here real quick. I think we looked at this before the show. 4 fantasy points, 4, 6, 7. His best is 9 last week. But last week he was 5,600. Now he's 7K. How the hell are you going to fit Dalton Schultz in with all these studs? He's coming in around 30% owned. It feels like maybe the field is going, 4-2 stacks with Mixon. You get in a little bit of Tank Dell, you get in some Dalton Schultz. I don't know that, by having all these wide receivers out for the Texans, Dalton Schultz is immediately a guy that I'm just jamming in. That worries me, and at 7K, it worries me. I think his ownership, if it's lower than 25%, then he gets a little bit interesting. But, what are we doing with Dalton Schultz? Because it feels like the field is gravitating towards getting more Schultz.
Yeah, maybe they're trying to play him at captain. I don't know. I don't like him at 7K. I think you can probably spend down. Yeah, I don't know, get a kicker and then save up, spend up elsewhere. I don't like Dalton Schultz. I think you can sprinkle in Cade Stover, maybe. But again, this isn't the position that I'm targeting. I think if you're looking for value, you go Dario Gumbawale, and then tight end, probably Jeremy Ruckert on the other side.
Yeah, I think Ogunbowale is, better play than a lot of these value at tight ends. Let's go to defense and kicker here with a 42 total. And, the Houston Texans banged up. You got 2 good defenses. Fairbairn's 5,200. Jets defense, 3,400. I mean, that feels like a decent play. Texans, 4,600. It looks like the Jets defense coming in around 30% ownership in the flex. That's interesting. I want to look at that as we get closer here. We don't know who the kicker for the Jets is yet, so keep an eye on that. As long as you could temp build with one of these guys and then just mass swap them out. Riley Patterson at 4,800, Spencer Schrader 4,800. I don't know. I recognize Riley Patterson. I don't recognize Spencer Schrader, so who knows? But what are we doing with defenses here? This feels like it could be a low-scoring game. I think you got to get some game scripts in with potentially 2 defenses. I'm not afraid to play either of these defenses at the captain spot. But if the Texans defense is really coming in at 10% owned in the flex, and the Jets defense, I know they're 3,400, but if they're coming in at 30% owned, I think I'm going to go on in the Texans direction if I choose to do a defense. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that is pretty high exposure for the Jets defense. Again, I don't want to overdo this, but 1,400 less to get to Dare Bawale, 2,400 less to get to Ruckert, right? Like there's different things that I'm a little bit more comfortable getting to because if these defenses don't pay off, then you really are just kind of screwed. But that said, I do think ownership's skewed a little bit because we don't have any going to the Jets kicker. So we probably see the Jets defense fall closer to like 20-25% ownership, I think. And that's kind of reasonable to me. You know what I mean? I think that's fine. I do think having a little bit of exposure to the Texans defense is also fine. But I don't know. I'm not going to get too crazy on that. It is too scary with me. Having Aaron Rodgers, Adams, all of them, right? The more that they play together, I don't think that the less effective they be. But this is the Jets, so who knows? Maybe the curse does overrule the talent.
Yeah, it's true. And we have seen Aaron Rodgers get tore up on some big sacks. You know, scoop and score is in the mix. I feel like Texans defense is kind of appealing, and if their ownership is really kind of that low, like I'm going to be looking at them. Let's get into our crown their ass here. It's our favorite tournament play on DraftKings.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Ellie, you're going Tank Dell. I'm going Joe Mixon. I think there's ways to get unique with your builds. I mean, you know, Joe Mixon captain, throw in another Texan and run it back with 4 Jets potentially, or just go Mixon and Houston onslaughts. There's a lot of different ways. Putting a Gumawale in there with Mixon. There's a lot of different ways to get different, even though I think he should be the highest owned over Breece Hall, but they'll probably be both right around, 20 to 25% owned in the captain, or, it could be a lot less. I'm just basing this off of SaberSim's early projections here, but what are your thoughts on Tank Dell here? We've seen Tank Dell have some massive games, and he's the guy now,
Yeah, and this might be a bit of a homer take, but he's just in such a good smash spot. He is the guy now. I I secretly think he's always kind of been the guy that was going to be. I guess as long as Nico Collins is there, he is the guy. But I do think Tank Dell is going to take over that spot. So I like him, man. I think he's got some game breaking talent, and I do think you should bet on him a little bit. People come under, I think, a little bit more than we think they will, just because of who they're going up against in the matchup.
Yeah, and I think of all the stars on this slate, Tank Dell is going to be the guy that people overlook the most. All right, let's get to our Kimes play of the night.
Steve Kime. I'm like, come on, bro.
So these are guys we shouldn't be playing, but are going to play a lot of. Ellie, what are you thinking here, man? What's a guy that you just know you shouldn't be clicking his name, but man, you just got to play him?
You already know what I'm going to say. It's Dare. It's Dare and Gumbuale, man. I'm going to have him. I'm going to have a bunch of him.
For me, it's probably a guy like Braylon Allen. He could absolutely get you 1.8 fantasy points, but 5 carries, 2 touchdowns, 11 yards is in the range of outcomes for me. And at 4,400, if I could jam in a lot of these studs, throwing him at captain a little bit, as well as just in the flex, even with Breece Hall, I don't mind it. But more than likely, I'll probably, if I'm hand building a couple of lineups, I'll probably leave Breece Hall out and throw him in the flex. All right, let's get to lineup builds here. Switch over to DraftKings. Throw us a like, guys. Let's get to 50 likes on this video. I should probably do that. Follow us. Join the Discord. Who do you want to build with first? Let's say we're building a lineup for the $100 single entry for this one, where I think there's less than 1,000 entries in that. Maybe there's a couple hundred. I don't remember off the top of my head. But we're not talking like a $5 single entry. We're talking maybe the $100 single entry or even higher than that. We want to get close to close to cashy here. Maybe a little weird in one spot. What do you think, captain-wise here? How do we handle this? And this all depends on our strategy. I'm probably going to get 8 or 9 single entries across the board. Maybe in my single entries, I want to go with a Breece Hall at captain, or you get more Breece Hall and then kind of be under the field in my GPPs with captain. What do we think here?
I mean, I think it's Joe Mixon, but call me crazy. I also think you can consider Aaron Rodgers for cash or for single entry.
Wow. Let's start with Joe Mixon and see how hard it is to build. All right. So Joe Mixon, captain, he's got, what'd you say, 20 targets this year. You could pair him with CJ Stroud, but what do we want to do as far as quarterbacks go? Let's just talk about that right off the bat.
I mean, at this point, right? Like if you play both quarterbacks, you're not really getting any other studs. So I think if you have Mixon and I mean go Aaron Rodgers, maybe fade CJ Stroud, but I think you really got to consider both quarterbacks.
Yeah, let's just put Rodgers in here at 9K. If that salary savings of $1,000 will help us, let's try it. Now, I feel like you just got to put Breece Hall in the flex. But, I mean, look at what we got working with us here. We got 4,700 per, which actually isn't terrible. But you're going to have to fade Stroud, Adams, Garrett Wilson. You're going to be getting kicker. You're going to be getting Jets defense, maybe. You're going to be getting one of these value guys.
Throw in Dye real quick. Honestly, I don't even mind Ruckert for cash, 1,000, but whatever. And then Mike Williams. I don't know if I like this for cash, but let's see, what does that give you?
Dalton Schultz or leave a bunch of money on the table. It probably feels like, instead of Mike Williams, you go up to a kicker, maybe.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, you might be able to do a kicker and then one of the like Hutchinson or something.
Let's hang on. Let's put Jets defense in. Does that unlock anybody? No, it doesn't. I mean, Jets defense, if they're that high owned, I don't mind it, but I'm probably not going to go that route. What do you think, Ogunbowale?
Yeah.
Oh, I already have him. Sorry.
Okay, throw in Hutchinson and let's just see where we're at.
Well, kind of in that same zone here. We can go down to a kicker and leave a bunch of money on the table. If you're doing a $5 single entry, maybe that's the way to go. And just by hand building this, if you're doing mixing lineups, maybe you break those lineups out and you just limit your max salary potentially. All right, let's pull Hutchinson out. Do you want to just like completely punt?
I mean, yeah. Let's do it.
Garrett Wilson or Devontae Adams or Tank Dell. I guess it's kind of, within $600 of each of them. So that, you're probably going to be in the same spot. You want to just throw Wilson in here, or what do you think? Tank Dell?
Throw in Dell.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that give us? Oh, that gives us a decent amount. Throw in Rucker. All right, you got Mechie. Yeah, this isn't awful.
I'd probably go with Mechie here, right? Well, no. Not for this.
We're short on
yeah.
Yeah, we don't have what's his name. So I mean, yeah, I don't think it really matters, to be honest with you. Rucker, Mechie.
Let's build one without Aaron Rodgers. Let's go no quarterbacks here. Let's throw in, do you want to go like a 4-2, like Mixon at captain? You want to get Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and then just run it back with 3 Houston Texans?
Sure. I mean, I would just throw in Dare, Kyami Fairbairn, and then what does that give us? Probably Tank Dell. Do we have enough?
No, not quite.
No.
I mean, you could do Texans defense, leave a little bit of money on the table. It's not a bad build.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Get
might
real
be
weird throwing Braylon Allen.
Yeah. Yeah, that might be a little bit more GPP. And if you go down to Braylon Allen here, it's not easy to build. I feel like leaving money on the table is the way to go. A couple thousand potentially. Let's go to GPP mode. Who do you want to build with here? Do you want to get interesting? You want to just see what it would be like to build with somebody a little bit cheaper, or do you want to kind of stick with our guys?
Let's just build one with Aaron Rodgers real quick and captain. I do want to do like a 1-5 or a 2-4. See what we like.
You want to go Aaron Rodgers and yeah, go ahead.
Go Mixon, Stroud, and then throw in Hutchinson.
Yeah, we're in pretty good shape right here. You want to throw in Garrett Wilson, or you want to choose between Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson and then just punt?
Throw in Breece Hall and let's just see what we have.
Ruckert, Sims. Sims could get some run. We gotta monitor who's actually active as that like fifth wide receiver for Houston. But just punt here, for GPPs. Do like 5 different versions of this. Switch out Breece Hall, put Garrett Wilson in.
If this is crazy, but for this kind of lineup, Aaron Rodgers a captain in a deep GPP, like I would go like Malachi Corley, and he's $200 in this particular thing, right?
Yeah.
Or Brownlee, whichever like 4th or 5th wide receiver that they have active, that would get one snap.
Let's try this. Let's go Mike Williams here. Let's see what that gets us. Dalton Schultz. So you got Aaron Rodgers, Saber Sims loving Mike Williams right now. Pair them together. Mixon, Stroud, Hutchinson, Schultz. Maybe. I mean, it feels like in this situation you might want to put Stroud at captain, but who knows? You want to build one more here? You want to get a little crazy, or you want to stick with these studs?
No, let's actually get crazy. Throw in Mike Williams.
All right, let's do it. This is going to be fun. Oops, let's get him a captain. All right, what's our game script here? Mike Williams goes off for 2 touchdowns, has 120 yards. Put Aaron Rodgers in the flex, and then run it back with 4 Texans?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Aaron Rodgers at 9K. We got to put CJ Stroud. We got to put Joe Mixon. You want to go Tank Dell?
Can we do it? Can we do it?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can.
And then you put in Kyrie Fairbairn. It's $200 left. That's why Mike Williams is popping on SaberSim.
Huh?
I
might just rotate this in there because you can pull out from here. You can go Fairbairn, Hutchinson, Allen if you're being weird. Woods, Jesus.
I mean, like, in what world does Mike Williams go off on this in this game? Probably not going to happen. But if we're just strictly looking at builds, that looked damn good. Maybe this is
we've been betting on it to happen for about 5.5 years now, right? So what's one more night?
All right. So I really just want to like completely fade the Jets and just go like 5-1 onslaughts Houston and put Houston defense in there. But I know as soon as I do that, the Jets are going to put up 45 fantasy points or put up 45 real world points, and that scares me. Maybe I'm just a wimp. I don't know. What is your final score prediction in this one, man? What'd you learn?
Yeah, I think I got 27-24 Houston.
Yeah. I'm gonna hope this is 27-17 Houston. But I would not be surprised if the Jets put up points. Just because I'm not going to play a ton of them. I'm not going to go heavy onslaughts. Everything revolves around me apparently. But, I've been playing Jets onslaughts all year. Maybe I stop this week. Maybe I do. I don't know, man. What do we got going on Monday night? Do you even know? Have you looked? I haven't looked that far ahead, to be honest. But throw us a like, comment down below. Let us know what you guys think. And we're going to try to record a Monday night show for you guys this weekend. We will see you guys later.